Hello and welcome to the Being and Becoming podcast. Together, we are being honest in conversations about thoughts we're having and books we're reading in the hopes of becoming better, more able versions of our current selves. My name is Logan Howard. I am joined today by a very good friend, a very close friend of mine, who has previously hosted a radio show with me in college and has also hosted a student-led event with live musical performances called Encore, which was a staple of Anderson University. And not only that, but he's a deep well of creative inspiration for me over these past 10 years. Please welcome my good friend, Mr. Nate Irvin.
Oh, thank you so much, Logan. I'm so honored and excited to talk with you today. Yeah, thank you.
I'm glad to get you on, man. I think it's gonna be really good conversation. I mean, both of us, I feel like, have so many interests in
hmm
music and obviously a variety of areas that it'll be
hmm
it's long overdue to have you on the show. So thanks for coming on.
Oh, well, yeah, I'm a little behind, but for a time I was an avid listener and I really have enjoyed it. It feels well, I became friends with Logan in college. It feels like a great little window into a beautiful world, getting to hear you talk with some of your close friends from high school who have become some of my friends in the times we've gotten to meet. So yeah, thanks so much.
Awesome, man. That's very kind of you. Yeah, and thanks for listening to the show and yeah, just being a great friend over these past 10 years. I've known 10 plus, I guess, now that I've known you.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Wow.
yeah, it's because I remember we first met. I don't know if you remember this, but in 2014, I think we got into a similar friend group who I don't know if we really hung with much after this, but at the beginning of college, our freshman year, I remember we went to this church and then we were playing like soccer together afterwards. I was just like, oh,
Yeah.
this is a really cool guy. And then, we'd
Yeah.
kind of be hanging out here and there every once in a while, obviously playing music and
hmm
hanging out in the dorms, just doing whatever college students do. And then yeah, we started playing together a little bit. Definitely, I've always respected. I want to say this: you are one of my favorite songwriters, whether AU or just in general. I think whenever you release music, it energizes me. I like listening to it a couple times. And you have a couple EPs out. I'd encourage anybody who's listening to please go check those out. And we also have an EP that we collaborated on together. So
Yeah.
check that out as well if you're so
Mm,
inclined,
yeah.
audience member.
Archipelagos by the second place. It's great. Yeah.
It
That was a
is.
wonderful time. Yeah.
It was. You and your brother Josh recorded. The three of us collaborated on that project, and I mean, you guys are just so talented. And Michael Slonim did a great job producing and recording everything and editing, whatever all the titles that he had. He did all a great job at all that stuff, and that was a really fun weekend of recording three songs and then shipping them out to the world.
Yeah.
And I also respect. I mean, I think you do this with most people that I've seen, or like most friends or relationships. I think you draw the best out in people when you're with them or around them. And I just think about, that project, or as I was mentioning before, our radio show or our other little kind of creative endeavors. Like I love just throwing out ideas. As I mean, you're an ideas person too, but what I respect about you is that you'll say, "All right, let's do that," and
Mm,
I'm kind of like, "Wait, really?" And then next thing you know, we're hosting Encore, which was that event at Anderson,
mhm.
and I mean, just doing the funniest bits that we would just like sit around and be like, "Oh, this would be a really funny idea." And then you were the guy that was like, "No, let's do this." And like we can do this. And
Mm.
I mean, you did went through all the hoops of reaching out to people and getting it cleared and all that kind of stuff. And I'll always be grateful for that. I think some of my best memories in like the creative process involve you and kind of just saying, we can do this, and here we are.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And that's definitely that definitely does bring back just so many wonderful memories. I think it's I think about like how creativity like isn't just um like thinking of the idea, but like part of the creative process, like it like lays in the foundation of like, oh, what is the email that needs to be sent, or what is the yeah, somehow it feels that a lot of times it's emails or texts, and that's actually where like the creative process stops, where it goes from being something that one person can enjoy to being um like uh something that's available and accessible for a lot of people. And I think like both elements of them are just like so important. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, because for me, if there's any kind of barrier to entry, I typically shut down like, oh, I'm just not gonna do it. But it was a good idea. But then I really value people that are like, no, that's a good idea, and this
Mm,
like can help the idea. Or even if I have a bad idea, I can just be like, Nate, this is what I'm thinking, and I can show it to you. And you'll see the thing that I value in it. Like you'll see that, and
mm,
you'll try to bring it out of the song or the joke, whatever, what the observation, whatever it is. Like I feel like you're always very grounded in like keeping an eye out for that thing that like I find joy in, but also like that other people would find joy in. You're good at like
mm.
uniting those things.
Oh, thank you.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that I think one of the things that I really respect about you, Logan, and that I think was pretty clear from when we first started like doing a bunch of very different creative things together. Like, I don't know, there's just like this like source, like the source of where your creativity comes from. And recognizing like, okay, there like how, and I think that like comes from like as we're made in the image of God, that like our source of creativity comes when we are like like we're imitating like God in a way, as a form of like a form of worship and a form of responding to what who God is and what God has done. I think that comes through really clearly in the songs that you write, and also in, I don't know, just like the little goofy, I can think of so many things like when oh man, like when we made up this like detective crime scene about what our roommate was doing when he was gone for 2 days and left a organized a room a certain way, like things like that. I just think that like a lot of that creativity like is like does come from God in some way. And so I think that's
Hmm.
something like it's really cool and special when like we get to participate like in that process in other people, of us being like faithful conduits like for uh like like how we respond to God like can be helped by other people. I don't know if that makes sense. But I feel like that's something that like comes through really clearly just in you.
Thanks, Nate. Yeah, I think yeah, it's kind of a mystery the way this world works, but
Yeah.
it's nice to have people that can laugh with you about things or lament with you about stuff. And I feel like you've been that friend for me that's like,
Mm.
we can laugh, we can be smoking cigarillos on our college dorm roof, talking
Yeah.
about love interests or whatever else. And, that kind of thing. So I just like, I think you have a dynamicism that I really value. And, but anyhow, I think in the interest of getting into topics and whatnot, we've been talking about the creative process, which
Mhm.
is mysterious to say the least. And I think in the vein of music, kind of focusing there for a minute, parking our car there for a second. There have been so many good albums coming out this year. I don't know what's in
Yeah.
the water, but all these musicians have been just putting out music like none other this year. And I feel like I'm sending you an album every week, or you're sending me an album every week. It's just been a lot of like back and forth kind of stuff. Have there been any artists, any songs, albums that are inspiring you right now or standing out? Like where are you kind of at with all of this?
Oh man, that's a great question. I I that yeah, that's a great question. I definitely agree. I think some of the albums that I found myself are artists that I've been like going back to listen to, or that I've been thinking a lot about, or like Beatenberg's new album has been, I think, just wonderful. It's like such a like fresh, it's so accessible, it's so fun. Yeah, I think that's been great. And um I really have liked Jacob, I think it's Collier. I don't know, his the Jesse Volume 4. Um I think there's something really cool to be said about, and I don't know why. Maybe I've been thinking a lot about how, yeah, I think those have been some that have been sticking out to me, and I like how much variety there is in some of those albums. It makes listening to a lot of like albums that I know that like someone whose musical taste I completely trust, when they're sending them to me and how I react, makes me realize like maybe how I listen to it affects a significant part of the experiencing it all. Something I've been thinking about as I've been listening. We've been exchanging these albums, which has been fun because I think there have been a few where you've sent it to me and I'm like, I don't know. I think there's some I've sent to you. And you're like, yeah, I don't know. Okay.
Yeah, the Vampire Weekend one was a little meh. But yeah, the Collier, Jacob Collier album, to Jesse 4. That album I think has every genre of music in it. And I was just
yeah.
blown away by that. And it has every genre, but to me it's very interesting. She Put Sunshine. I don't know if you remember that song. Oh my gosh, like I could listen to that song all day. It's
what I'm really curious. Like, I would love to hear you talk just in like, how did listening to that album like impact you? Like, what did it say to you? How did it make you feel? Yeah.
I think that album in particular, Jesse 4, I love the instrumentation. There's a lot of, from what I can gather, again, I haven't looked at all the music and how it's arranged and composed, but it sounds like there's a lot going on in the composition, but it's also pleasing to the ear. So there'll be like a wrong note, and you're like, oh, but it worked. I love that kind of stuff, gets grabs my attention. And then lyrically, I think it's very optimistic, and it's like refreshing to hear music that's well written and good, but is also coming from like a genuine, it seems like a genuinely happy outlook on life. And so still have that be relatable, even just like She Put Sunshine, obviously. But then I like those A Box Full of Stars at the end, a lot of those kind of, I guess you call them features or something, of like a lot of different artists put in together there. But then obviously there's like sadder songs on it, like Summer Rain is kind of like a slower, sadder song, and Over You is an upbeat, but kind of like, I'm moving on. Like, I guess that is still positive, but about kind of a hard thing of getting over a relationship. But yeah, so it's just like a lot of really interesting stuff. And even like A Rock Somewhere, that song with kind of more of like the Middle Eastern music composition. And there's I want to say it sounds like sitar or something like that. Is in there. But yeah, so anyhow, it just like I like an album that keeps you engaged the whole time. And I feel like that's one where you're never like getting bored, really. And it's like impossible to. It's like there's Chris Tilley, or however you say his name, like on a track, and then there's like all these other like amazing people that are being featured, and yeah, John Mayer and Lizzie McAlpine are on a song with him. So I don't know. There's just like a lot of good stuff on it, and yeah, but I wasn't sure. Did you have any other thoughts, or am I kind of hitting all the things you're thinking of?
I think well, I think especially in listening to that album, I think I felt a kind of like it hit me, like I saw myself in it a little bit, like
Mm,
somehow. I don't know if I've completely have words for it, but I think that's okay with music, not having words for things. Um, uh, I guess like another question that like strikes me is because I feel like there's this huge, especially, and I think streaming like has the how music has shifted from a like a physical thing with like records, cassettes, CDs into a streaming. I think it has shaped like how it's so common for artists to collaborate now. Where I think it was a lot less common in the past, I think. I wonder. That I think would be some interesting data to pull, but um what do you think it says about like an artist who like Jacob Collier who is collaborating like almost on every single song? Yeah, what do you think that like says about maybe him personally, him as an artist,
yeah.
him about his creative process?
Well, I think
That's something that I wonder about.
I think I wonder if it's definitely a confidence thing. And like a trust. Like I'm open to being vulnerable with a number of people in this like creative, because it's not easy. Like my preference is to write everything on my own and then share it with people and fine tune or whatnot.
Mhm.
But I couldn't do like we've watched the John Bellion videos when he's producing, and he's literally just making the beat and then writing the words to match the beat. I could not work. Like I would go on my own. Maybe I'm writing the music first with an acoustic guitar or something, but I want to have like an idea of it before I would like go and share it to anybody or
Yeah.
be in a studio. So I mean, those guys are just so talented to, you know, be writing everything on the spot, have it make sense, and hopefully be meaningful as well, because that's the game that and this is more of an aside about the way music's written in general. I don't really like the game of let's just put random words together and phrases, and I don't like that as much still.
Mm.
Obviously I'm more open to it now than I was probably earlier in life, but because I really value like writing and the what are we trying to say? Like, what's the purpose of, and there are artists that work that way too. But yeah, and I don't know specifically about his process, Jacob's process, but it does seem kind of very open, inviting. He seems like a guy you'd want to work with, or
Absolutely.
because some people are so into their process to where it's like they can't work with other people very much. So I really like that. And I think a lot of newer artists are doing that. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So you're saying it like he seems like a very open like person to like work with. It strikes me that he's like someone that could like he can like no because he's probably in most rooms he's probably like the best musician in the room. Probably. Maybe not always, but um it seems like he can really like see the beauty in like every person's like expression of like music, I guess.
yeah, that's the impression. I've watched a couple interviews. You sent me an interview actually with
Mhm.
him because he had started playing guitar on the last album, which I thought his guitar playing was really good on the
Yeah.
album too, for just learning like, oh, it's such a unique approach. If any listeners out there are guitar players or even just interested in music at all, I'd recommend watching that interview,
Mhm.
or an interview with him, kind of talking about his guitar playing and like musical approach, because it is unique. It seems very unique based on my own experiences, and just yeah, other videos I've watched about the creative process of different musicians. But Yeah, but is that the way you would interpret his collaborations, or like, do you have a different outlook on what it means? Maybe not even kind of taking Jacob aside to like just in general. How do you view collaborating in music and that sort of thing?
Yeah. I are you- um I think there's something like, have you seen him do any of like the audience choir things?
Yeah, those are cool.
Those are super cool. And
Yeah,
I think there's like something about music that is like so community. Like it's all like you like there an element where you like can't do it on your own, I guess. And I think that's part of like what he's doing is like seeing this music as a community, a human community thing. And I think that's really cool that it feels like he incorporates so many different styles of music and um like being able to hear hear something that resonates in your heart with the song. And I think one of the things that um like was a really early like connection point for you and I was how like we both really liked like Mumford and Sons, and listening to some other artists like Need to Breathe or Bon Iver. I think you were the one that
yeah,
really helped me to get into him, who I absolutely love now. Um, and yeah, I just think there's like something like music has an uncanny potential to bring people together. Um,
amen. Yeah, it is so good at that. Yeah, I mean, I forget. I think I was having a conversation recently about that where that's, I mean, and sports is another good one too, but it's
yeah,
just such a common language. Like everybody can relate to heartbreak or the thrill of victory, or
yeah,
just there's a lot of different experiences that can be captured in a song, or even if it's not something you've gone through, you can still listen to it and then respect the perspective of the person writing it. So
yeah.
yeah,
There's like an
it's really
empathy
powerful.
building thing in sports and in music.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, and like books are that way too. I just finished reading 1984. So it's like the perspective that someone can come to with writing a book, is very like it's obviously a lot more detailed than a song, but it could be a similar experience as far as getting an insight into their mind, but then also maybe an observation about the world or the way they see it, or
Mm,
that's relatable. So
yeah, yeah. Oh, ooh, man.
yeah. But anyhow, so yeah, the Great Fire of Beatenberg, I think, is the Beatenberg album. Very phenomenal. I love Wheelbarrow. Love that song.
That's a great one. One
Yeah.
one that I love, probably my favorite, is Gold Mine. Like
Yeah.
I don't know, but like the chorus, one of the things I love about it is that it's not in, at least the chorus is not in like 4/4 time, like almost everything. And so
Mm,
it just somehow is also just awesome. I don't know. Yeah. Wheelbarrow,
yeah.
Gold Mine, Ode de Toilette.
Yeah.
I'm not French, so I don't know how to say
Yeah. Oh, the toilet. Yeah, however,
it.
yeah, that's a good one too.
Yeah. So they're great.
Yeah.
I really like them. Thanks for sharing that with me. I don't know if I knew it was out yet.
Nate, this is a throwback. And if any listeners to the podcast also attended Anderson University, they'll be aware that Nate and one of our mutual friends, Ethan Stutz, used to host was it a podcast? I don't remember. It was a show of some kind
Oh, yeah, we would used to live stream it, I think.
on YouTube?
Wait, I don't know. What did we do? Yeah, maybe it was. I don't know. Maybe it was on
Yeah.
Facebook. I can't remember. Yeah, we would just
But for the listener, it was called, was it New Music Tuesdays or something?
some like playlist Tuesdays is what we call them.
Playlist Tuesday. Okay. And
Yeah.
I remember I was a guest one time and it was really fun because I was basically like, hey, what are you listening to right now? And I remember I talked at that time about a Beatenberg song.
Yeah.
I think it was Ithaca.
Yeah.
And then like then I forget what, maybe there was a theme, I don't remember how it worked, but then like you would pick a song, Ethan would pick a song, and we'd like by the end we like built this playlist of just, because I would say something, oh, and then that make you think of something, or Stutz think of something, and we just kind of like pull a playlist together that was like, you know, I don't know where it ended up going, but it was really fun to do.
Oh, it is so fun. And yeah, I think oh man, yeah, that was really fun. That was a really special time. And I do remember, and one of the things that was so fun about it is like in the case of, I think you had at that point had shown me Beatenberg, but I don't think Ethan had heard of Beaten. And so he loved it. And and that was really fun, is because we'd have these guests and they like we'd get introduced to new music that we love, like now love through it. But we would give each other like prompts that are pretty much nonsensical. And like find a song that is 52 seconds exactly, and we just find one on Spotify and put it on the playlist.
Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah, because there would be like fun ideas. Maybe it was like a couple rounds of something. I'd be like, name a song that is from this country or something, and you're kind of like, looking it up, you know.
And it makes me think about like just recognize or just remember that like creativity is something that you have to like practice and like develop in multiple ways. And Logan, I think you were like, something I enjoy so much about spending time with you is it feels like you're like you just practice it all the time in so many ways, whether just doing different things. Like I remember in the house I'd see you scramble, like cooking some food, and then all of a sudden you just do a drum beat with your and then just stop and just go back to cooking like that. What do you like? How do you think about like, oh, I'm gonna be practicing like being creative, or what? Yeah.
Such a great question. And it's funny too, because I think being married now, you know, and dating Peyton, she would point that stuff out to me. I wouldn't even be aware of it. Like, because I think I spent so much time just in a different world or thought. Like I wasn't in the concrete world as much. And I was always thinking of, or not even thinking of, just like hit me. I'd be like, this is a good verse, or like this is a good beat, you know, or something. And unfortunately, you know, like between working a corporate job and all my responsibilities of everyday life, my mind's not in the same place. Like I'm not there as often, but I can still get there. Like I just need my guitar, and really I can just lock in, you know, if I have a couple hours free or something, just kind of explore. But I will also, I want to contribute some of this, and I want to hear your thoughts on this as well, as like growing up in a family that really encouraged that exploration of creativity and or really just like not even that they encouraged it, but like didn't impose on like, Logan, that's dumb. Why? Like that was not a thing that, or like maybe they'd roll their eyes or make jokes, but it wasn't like, you are stupid for, that's a dumb idea. Like that was never something that I experienced growing up a lot. And I felt the free, like my mom would be very interested, and even if it was a terrible song, she'd be very interested in like similar to like a skill set I think that you have. She would find that nugget of there was something good in what you're doing, and she would try to like draw that out of me, you know. And even like Luke and Aaliyah, they weren't as big of fans, but I knew if I had a promising song, if my brother Luke, he would just say like, oh, I like that part when blah, 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 blah. Or if I could hear them singing the song later, I'm like, okay, I got something, you know, it's, and they were always so supportive and stuff. And, you know, like, I think that's part of it. It's just, I basically grew up, instead of watching TV, I would just get the guitar out and like think about my day and like play. And sometimes I'd write funny stuff and just like improvise words. And like it's kind of tough to explain, because it's almost like a whole, there's so many things that like feed it, but I'm trying to think through, because like even my junior year living situation in college, in our apartment, I lived with Ian, our good friends Ian and Josh, and then Nate Hayes as well. Who, you know, that was a very fun time and a fun year. And we put all of our beds in one room so that the other room we could just play music together. And it would just be that, like, sometimes you're like goofing around, and then other times you're just like writing the most serious worship song, or like, it wasn't like we would set out to be like, we're gonna sit down and like write a very serious thing. It would just be like, you're kind of like fiddling with stuff, where I'd be like, hey Josh, check out this guitar part I made. And they'd be like, oh, I think that worked. I wrote a song in a similar key, and like we would like kind of like mash stuff up like that, or like, I don't know. It's just like, also think jokingly, I've started saying this recently, but going back to my brother and sister and like family, I jokingly will say like I kind of grew up like in a writer's room. The way like our relationship worked, it was just a lot of like throwing stuff out there, and like there was a lot of like being funny was a huge currency in our family. And so like if you could make a good point but say it, because sometimes like if you said a point, like whatever it was, about an observation about the world or someone's behavior, it could come across as rude or mean or whatever. But then if you could like make it in a joke, you know, everybody's laughing, and it's like, oh, it's like a good way of like, you can accept criticism a lot better that way. I can, at least, of like making it fun or funny. And so it's just like it kind of grew out of that, I think. And then, my brother and sister and I were, and like people even tell us, they're like, it's just hard to keep up with you guys because we're all just like got our own thing. And I know like what they think's funny, and we're all kind of have different senses of humor but like meld well. And I don't know, it's like, it's kind of tough to explain with words, but I think it's just like a lot of the way I grew up and just my outlook on the world, and just spending probably hundreds of thousands of hours wasting time, as some people might call it, but just
wasting time,
playing the same chord and just messing around on a scale, you know, just kind of. But I want to hear. I've given such a long answer. Oh yeah, please go ahead.
Can I like that? Yeah, that makes so much sense. Of like you're growing up in a family where, I mean, even you described like your mom frequently and your brother and sister every once in a while, just like pointing out the nugget, even recognizing, okay, maybe the whole of this isn't like isn't glorious, but hey, like there's some value here. Like there's something of value here. And then also additionally, part of your like upbringing is if there's a problem or I don't know, something doing that's remarkable in a bad way, being able to switch your perspective a little bit, and all of a sudden it's an opportunity for humor, for connection and laughter. I think that's, in my mind, like that's one of the most like powerful, like that's a powerful thing. Like that's how creativity is so powerful, because it can take this opportunity for hurt, for shame, or for whatever, and then all of a sudden it's an opportunity for, you're still corrected, but there's also this like reinforcing a community, laughter, humor, and joy, like too. And I think that's like that's far from wasting time. I think that's like powerful, and I think the world like desperately needs that. So
that's very kind of you. And I was saying too, to clarify, I was more so wasting time just noodling on a guitar, or like that's how people might see it. Like, because I wouldn't like ever, a lot of especially guitar players, like electric guitar players, which is where I am more like, that's my domain, like playing in bands and stuff. But most of those cats, like they like to sit down and they learn every part like exactly in time, all the effects, whatever. And I was just kind of like, I would make it the way I wanted it to sound, and wasn't as concerned about like hitting everything the way that, outside of like when we got into college and would play at certain churches and stuff that were like, okay, we want to be off music. They would like give you the isolated parts they wanted you to learn. I would do that to be respectful. Like I would learn all that stuff, but I don't find the joy in simply like sitting, similar to Jacob Collier. Again, I've been talking about him a lot, but he talks about that too, as like when he sits down, he's like, I don't think of it like I'm practicing. Like I'm just like playing whatever's kind of like coming into my head. And That's really what I enjoy about the guitar. I don't, unless occasionally I'll get someone's song stuck in my head and I'll sit down and want to play it and learn it. But typically it's the mouthpiece to how I can express what I'm going through and working through it. But
yeah, I think I've noticed the same thing in my a similar thing in like myself as well of like right now I don't like how I play guitar and sing is like different. It's more about like expressing, oh, like I feel connected to the song rather than, oh, I want to get this skill or I want to be able to play this and have the mastery of it. And I think, but it also like makes me realize like our ability to do this or to engage in music this way is like, oh, I want to play something that I like is built upon the foundational building blocks of like skill and technique and like music theory and also like experience playing and how the creativity and freedom that we experience is made up of building blocks of like technique of practicing of uh not creative things.
yeah,
Hmm.
it's a really good point
Because
because I think
there,
you get to a point where you take that stuff for granted when
yeah,
I don't know where it is, but there's a certain proficiency where you reach where I'm happy enough with what I know to where I can like write music and express myself, and I feel really good about that. And but then I forget about all the steps I climbed to like get to that spot. So it's I think that's
yeah,
very valid what you're saying.
and that's probably good. Like your brain doesn't need all that stuff, so it's like, oh, let's get that out of here. Let's make room. There's some new things out there.
Yeah, for sure. And Nate, just kind of talking about all this creative processes and whatnot.
Mhm.
Could you let us? I've been let in a little bit. Obviously, we've collaborated on a number of things, but maybe let the listener in too on like how does someone get interested in this, or like if they are interested, like what's your process that you follow? Is there a set structure? How open is it? In the way you kind of do things or whatnot.
And oh wow. Well, I'm honored. I think uh yeah, well, I think everyone has their own creative process. And so figuring out what works first, it's an experience and it's a process. It doesn't have a um like the only enjoyable bit can't be just the finished product, but enjoying that like the steps that get there, I think is really important. And so I think it's okay if you don't feel great about everything that you create. I think sometimes I feel like we were talking early about creativity like a river, and I think it's really important and something you have to practice. And so I think that when you're creating, even if it's bad, the river is still flowing. Like something
Mm,
else is gonna like there's a like something will come like down. Like something will still come. So even if the idea that you're working with at the song river that like I don't feel this is great, I think still like working at it will help the river to keep flowing. And it's even like an act of faith to kind of like to record it, to get it to that moment of like, okay, I'm letting it go and I'm open for the next thing. I think there's like an important piece in that. And so for me, like if there's like an idea or some sort of expression that I want, like something that I feel on my heart, where I feel like right now a lot of the songs I write are like split between, I don't know, just things about life and also just like worship songs. Um, that I kind of envision as being like my expression to God, but also like the church that I go to, where every once in a while we'll sing one of those, which is a real gift. In the case of like worship songs, it usually like starts in like scripture, like in reading a passage or a story and just feeling like I want to be able to express this. Like after reading this and like what I've like learned about God from it or how God has revealed himself, like I want to respond some way. Give, I want to equip my response in a thoughtful and intelligent way. Oh, it looks like I just raised my hand. Praise Jesus. Um,
uh,
and and so I think that can be where it starts, or if it's something about life, maybe there'll be like a lyric, or maybe there'll be a melody. I think that's something I've tried getting better at, is where how I typically approach music is through like chords and guitar, where I've tried to like approach it more like vocally. And so like singing it or with words first. I've just experimented in trying in different ways, and it's interesting how approaching it, starting in different places, whether sometimes it's starting with chords, helps you wind up in one spot, where starting with words winds you up in one spot, and starting with like a melody winds you up in another spot. Or sometimes you kind of have like a whole, like, oh, I'm starting with this overall emotion. How do I get to this overall emotion?
Yeah.
Very, and so I think it's all starting from all those places is legit. I've tried experimenting with each of those. I think one of the most important spots, and this is where like the concrete thing is just taking out my phone, and if it's an idea or a melody, just voice memos, just recording it, and then just like leaving it. And then because once you do that, it's so much easier to, oh, I had this idea. Oh, when I'm playing guitar next, like, oh yeah, I had this idea, listening back to it. And and then like, and that's such a better place to, like, that's again the flow that's going. You have this idea, you're in trust. Sometimes I think about it like you're responsible for this one idea to get it to its next step. And so, okay, that helps you to do the next step and the next step. And but you can also, like, it lives there. You don't have to think about it anymore until you listen to it. And so, and then from there, yeah, I think writing things down is really important. So, but a lot of times it's getting the first idea on voice memo, and then maybe the next time I'll sit down and like and sing it like with a guitar. And after that, I'll record it again on the phone with a voice memo, and
Yep.
then listen to it again. Listen to it in my car, listen to it a few times, and just as I'm listening to it, just trying to like object. I think that also helps me to like disassociate it like from myself a little
Yeah.
bit, where I'm not being like critical. I don't know, not being overcritical, but also like constructive of like, oh, as I'm listening to this, what do I hear differently? Oh, this word, oh, I want to change this. Oh, I should, this melody line, I have it going down. Oh, but I'm talking about like going up. So, oh, I should go up. And just being able to listen to it, I think helps me get like a good amount of distance to be able to like make good changes to it. Just like if you have a book right up in front of your face, that's not an appropriate, you don't have the right distance to read.
Right.
But
Right.
if it's too far away, you also can't read it. So I think, and then from there, kind of eventually making the changes that I want until I feel like, okay, this is it. Like this is something that like I really like. Sometimes I'll just go in my car and I'll just like listen to a song that I've written, and I feel like that's a good spot. That's how I feel like I know when it's done.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That was such a good detailed breakdown of your process. I
Oh,
think
thanks.
because it's one of those things that like when I was first starting out too, I was like, how do you do this thing? And it like almost to what we were talking about earlier too, like it can be intimidating, and sometimes you just need a person to kind of like push you or to be like, not that you have to do it this way, but like this is an idea of like how to do it. And
Mhm.
I also think it's interesting what you said about the melody, because I've almost never written a melody. I'll have the chords and the words, mash them together, and then I will change the lyrics to once because I don't even know how to explain it. Like the melody comes last to me, and then I like edit
Yeah,
the words or something.
yeah,
Um, but I've also like tried because on the guitar, I can at times be pretty melodic, like or like I
yeah,
do like counter melodies and stuff sometimes too, um but like I think I can get my mind there. It's just maybe not a natural spot. Like my natural thing would be probably just getting the guitar out, starting with the guitar something, and then that'll influence me to write the words, and then I kind of mash those together, and the melody just is birthed out of that, or something. But because you said you're trying to play around with. All right, I want to. Oh, hi, doggies. I want to. The dogs probably heard them barking. Peyton just got back, but
Listen, Stevie.
for the listener, yeah. So Gus and Stevie are running around, and Peyton's home. But yeah. So like you were saying that you've tried to play around with. I'll start with the melody, or I'll start with the guitar, or like chords rather. Like I'll start with melody or chords or lyrics. Do you have is there one you default to like naturally?
Man,
or does it just depend?
I think it comes and goes in different seasons, and I think it reflects like how I oof, mm, I I think depending on like what I'm playing more frequently, or what I'm just like most familiar with, is what I'm doing most of the time will affect the most. Where right now, a lot of the times I don't play guitar as much as I used to. I still lead worship at my church about once a month, and so now a lot of it is, I feel like often most times it's probably mostly like singing is how I do it, rather. Where I know in the past is definitely sometimes like words. And sometimes it was also like, oh man, this is a sweet like little guitar thing that I just love playing.
Yeah.
I gotta do something with this.
Every guitar player can relate to that.
Yeah. Oh man. It's like, this is cool. I don't even know what I'm doing. But
Yeah.
am I the next John Mayer?
What key am I in?
Yeah, don't even know.
Yeah.
I don't know. So
Yep.
that's a good question. And I think it's okay that it can change. And I think because I remember, because I think that's something that Jacob Collier maybe talked about in that interview, is how when you're like writing through a different guitar, or like the instrument does also like affect how you express yourself too. Like even if you're equally competent at guitar or piano or ukulele or whatever, it does like shape it somehow. And I don't know exactly the words for all of it, but I think it's really interesting. But I think it's okay for it to change at different times and different seasons. And yeah,
that makes sense. I mean, I think I used to always approach it from writing first when I was younger. I would write like, well, it's originally started with just writing not they weren't satirical songs, but what do you call them? Like Weird Al was the master of it.
satire, satirical.
No. I'm trying to. There's a specific word, but like basically like taking a pre-existing song, rewriting the words to that song. I blanket on that phrase for whatever reason. Feel free to comment in the comment section to let me know my brain fart here. But yeah, no, I started doing that with songs, and then I would try to write a serious song, but it might sound like Holiday by Green Day, something like that. And then I eventually got to a point where I could find a voice and just write something, and like I knew the pentatonic minor scale and kind of roughly how chords went into a song, and was just like, here we go, So but yeah, no, I think it's the most fun process for me. Or like I could be having such a bad day, and if you give me a guitar, not that it changes anything, but it helps me at least say I had a bad day. And or if I had a good day, it doesn't make it any better necessarily, but it helps me say I had a good day. And there's something about being able to articulate yourself. It's not even in English necessarily, but sometimes just playing the guitar, but to just voice something like that is so profound.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah. it's so wild how music and has the like capacity for that. Um, yeah. I've been reading this book. I'm not done, so I feel kind of bad like uh talking about it, and I talk about it a lot. Michaela's really I feel like she just kind of rolls her eyes a little bit, but it's actually right here on my desk. It's called The Master and His Emissary. One of my professors talked about it a lot, but it's about the different uh sides of our brain, the two hemispheres, and the differences between them. And the left hemisphere is where language is located, and so but it's also very um, focused on like the parts that make up something, where the right hemisphere is probably the more powerful hemisphere, especially in terms of perceiving the world, seeing the context, and like what it's aware of. Um, but that's not where language is mostly housed. And so I think there's something that's so powerful of with music, um, because it like hits a deeper part, maybe a deeper part of us that is just deeper than language. And I think music has just that amazing quality, just like you were describing, like even if you're not saying words, but just like playing a few things on
Yeah.
just like, oh, there it is. You feel it, and there's just this way that it can just like restore like balance and peace in a way that like words can't, I suppose.
Preach, man. Yeah, we were actually talking about something similar. I had a guest on the show last week, Philip Blunt, and he was talking about, I mean, music is a perfect example, but even just the things we love in general in life, how that
Mhm.
part of the brain is not associated with language, like the things that we truly
Mm.
love. So that's why if someone says, Logan, why do you love your wife? I'm like, well, what do you mean? Because it's like I could list qualities about her or the way I feel when I'm around her, but those aren't even like they don't adequately express that even, it's like it's deeper than my language. And so I think that's one of the things, like music obviously can use words in singing and whatnot, or sometimes it cannot, but it hits a part of us that's like much deeper than a rational, you
Yeah.
know. I love
Yeah.
this song because it's da 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 da, and it's like, yeah, that might be true, but it's also like relating with you in a certain way that's profound.
Yeah. Yeah. And but there's somehow of like expressing, it's a real gift to be able to, I feel like even though, I mean, neither of us are professional musicians. We're not making any money from all, like we both created so much music, and it's not serving us, but still regardless, like I feel so blessed to be able to just even in moments, not all the time, but just to express to the people around me, like to me, like this is like closer to like how I really feel, or like how I really am at a
Hmm.
in a way that is like just, even though a lot of times it incorporates words, but it also is like deeper than words as well. And I think about being able to uh like write songs for our spouses and like how special that is. And I know I've heard some of yours and they are good. I think maybe one of them even made me tear up. I don't know. They're
Oh, thanks, man.
I think it's being able to express ourselves, regardless of how commercially successful they are, is just, I think, a real gift.
Yeah, and I think I'm glad you're making a distinguish too between, because some people might want to just be so good at something, or they want fame or whatever else, that they'll use
Mhm.
music as a way to like achieve that means. And then you got people that, like one of my favorite artists, John Van Dusen, shout out if you're listening, is just a guy in Washington that's like small, kind, like not very popular kind of thing, but puts out consistently good music, like each record and everything. And I'm like, yeah, it's like the commercial success, I think, doesn't. Although, and that isn't to say like there are some commercially successful artists that are like, yeah, they should be, they're really good or whatever. But yeah, it's not always like just because they are successful or have all these listeners or whatever you want to call it, like doesn't necessarily mean the music's good or whatnot. But yeah.
Yeah. I can't help but like think about the relationship between success and creativity.
It's an odd one.
And especially like financial or like notoriety, like how that affects people's like creativity. I think it's got to be really hard to find the balance. I don't think it's impossible, but I think it's got to be just like really hard.
Yeah. Something we'll never have to worry about now.
Maybe.
No,
I don't
I
know.
mean, hey, I'm gonna say this. I'm calling it on the podcast right here. I hope you can do something with music one day. I've kind of, I mean, I wouldn't mind playing on other people's stuff or whatever. And yeah, Pentant. No, just you're such a good guitar player. You don't need me, but if you want me, I'm always
You're a better
available.
guitar player, so
No, I wouldn't say
I
that,
would
but
say that, but it's okay.
but I think you know, if like I came to a point where I realized I love doing this as a hobby, but I would hate it if it was my job, kind of thing. And I wasn't sure if I would regret that, but you know, a couple years in, we'll see. I mean, life's a long, illustrious journey, as we all know. But
Yeah.
a few years in, I feel at peace and good with that decision.
Mm.
And then I still, you know, I wish I put a little bit more time aside for writing and playing still, but I definitely am still energized by that. And I'm glad it didn't take over as like my way to earn money because then it wouldn't fuel me the same way. I'd probably have to find something else that would like be life giving to balance it, you know. So
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. It is interesting. Uh I think just like in every season, like there's a response. Like there's a man, pardon me for I feel I'm concerned I'm speaking just so abstractly. But I think for every like whatever we're going through in every season, like when we were in college, there was one like creative response that was appropriate. Um, and I think in this season when we've been graduated for a few years, we've been in the professional world for a few years, we're married now, and like the response is different. And I think it's okay that the creative expression that our lives are exhibiting is different, where now we're not like performing music as much, but there's this podcast that you've been creating and you've still been like almost every episode like you're bringing in like other people, and it just seems like this is a like it's like because of it like the river is still like flowing in your life and it's like an appropriate response. It's not like you're not just creating for creativity's sake, but you're like respond I don't know exactly, but like it like fits right in this life, and to wish uh oh I want this one completely to not to thoughtfully remember or celebrate or be grateful for like a prior season of creativity. There's like this yeah, because that can like lead to like some like bitterness and like resentment
Mm.
rather than the gratitude of what is the like the right response in this season. um, Yeah, I think my dad in particular is someone that really has exemplified that really well because he's had his days of playing music and writing and being in a band and worship leading and a lot of stuff. And now he used to do a lot of like visual art, and now he's kind of just like writing books and writing stories, and it's
Oh,
like
cool.
cool seeing how he's like he's been creative all along, but it's just like changed in each little season.
I actually am going through a similar thing on a minor scale, or like a smaller scale, typically, like to the point you were making about your dad, where I mean, it used to be all music. Now I am starting to get a little into writing stories, like, and I know you've written some stuff as well as like short stories and as well. But yeah, no, I think it's just that like creative itch. Like obviously the podcast is doing it for me right now. And there'll be the next iteration of whatever that is. And I couldn't articulate to you why I feel like I need to do this, but I have that drive in me I need to be working on something. I need to be creating, expressing myself, understanding the world, understanding others. Yeah, man. And yeah, the way that you go about your creative endeavors blesses me, and yeah.
Thanks. Thanks. What is the thing that it feels like you've just like got this itch to do?
Oh, right now?
Yeah.
So longer term, I'd like to write a fictional book, or maybe a couple. Yeah.
Yes.
But right now it's a podcast, and
The Adventures of Dorcas Malorcas.
my alter ego strikes again. Yeah.
Strikes
Yeah.
again.
Yeah, that's the subtitle. But yeah, no, I think I'd love to write, I don't know, even like stories for our kids, or something, and we'll see what happens. But I obviously it's the podcast for now. It'll change into something else. But I want to acknowledge that you are someone that's in tune with their creativity, their process, and I just implore you to keep going at it too, whether it's music or any of the other stuff. So
Thank you. Thank you.
yeah.
I will. That's, I think, one of the things that going to have a little bit of extra time in this upcoming year. I'm wondering if that's something that I need to do. I think one thing that yeah, I will. I'm excited. We'll see. It's an adventure. All of it is. Yeah.
Man. Well, Nate, I wanted to thank you so much for coming on and talking with me today about music and all the things that are kind of entailed in that creative process. I mean, we could have talked about so many other things, or
Oh yeah.
just got to relive some good memories too from college and stuff. But I feel like there's just an endless amount of topics we could delve into here. But
Oh yeah.
thanks for coming on. Might have to have you back on before it's all said and done.
Of course. I would love that. And Logan, it has been an utter joy. So thank you so much for having me.
Anytime, man. Anytime. Yeah. Have a good one. Thanks again.
You too.
Bye.